We are now turning our attention to the Syrian conflict in terms of what happens next. You heard before going into the break in terms of the latest developments that are unfolding. The migrant crisis may in fact happen again, though refugees are being asked to go back to Syria, even as there are some pockets of ISIS strongholds that are being bombarded by both US and Israel. What happens next? Where do we go? Where does the country go? And what does it mean for the region and the world is our big question. Dr. Omer Anas joins us from Ankara to talk more on this. Professor Andrew Latham, he's joining us from Minnesota, and Dr. Awwad from New Delhi. He's a Syrian on the show and best placed to talk about what's happening right now. Though, of course, Dr. Omer, let me start with you, given the fact that Turkey is pretty much at the center of what's unfolding right now in Syria. And by all accounts, it's a great positive for President Erdogan right now. How do you think, and how much do you think Turkey will play a role in shaping Syria from here on?
Let me begin by saying that it is not one of the best scenarios which Turkey was expecting. If you follow the news of the last 6 months, in July 24, President Erdogan especially invited President Bashar al-Assad to visit Ankara and to speak about the normalization process between Turkey and Syria, and especially the status of the future of refugees. And these things were supposed to be sorted out between the two presidents. But on the second day, President Assad rejected the offer. And then again, in the Astana meeting on 12th of November, again, President Erdogan said that he is still hopeful that President Assad will be positive about the meeting. However, I think that there were certain developments.
Dr. Anas, are you saying that the rebels who are backed by Turkey right now and are set to form the government with the full support of Ankara is not an outcome that works well for Mr. Erdogan, both politically and in terms of a one-upmanship game in the region?
Of course, it will be very much favorable for Turkey. But as I told you that in the background, Erdogan was actively seeking a discussion with President Assad. Why? We have to focus on this issue because as of now, the situation is that the security situation in Syria and in the region is quite fragile because there is no state and there is no one authority there. And so you can see that Israel has been attacking almost every airport, largest number of airstrikes Israel has made in the past. This could have been avoided if Bashar al-Assad and Erdogan have negotiated a positive outcome. It was avoidable.
Okay.
However, because Bashar al-Assad again started attacking on Idlib, and then the leadership in Idlib, especially the HTS and other militant groups, they were already prepared for certain things. Let me also add this point. At this point, you know, the state which Assad was controlling, it was like a dead body. It was shallow because there was no political reform. And that is why, without much military effort...
Okay, so you are hopeful that there will be political reform with the government that will come over. I have my doubts there, and that's the reason why I played out that profile of the rebel leader first, so that our viewers also know the background of the man and the Al-Qaeda thought process which has birthed his entire movement. Professor Andrew, let me ask you this. I have only 3 major questions to ask in the discussion. One is about the people, what happens to them. Secondly, how skeptical should we be about the fact that will Syria then become another Afghanistan, because you have people with Al-Qaeda thought process taking over. And the third and the most important question also is what happens to the entire region? And that's exactly what I'm going to ask you, but one by one. In your assessment, is Syria set to be the next Afghanistan?
Potentially, it could be. We could have, we've had state failure there for a long time, but it could descend into chaos. There are 2 narratives about Julani, of course, one of which is that over the decades he has evolved and he's no longer a jihadist, an Islamist, and he's more of a technocrat, a state builder, a statesman, in fact. And he's been promulgating that. I think it's a myth, personally. But it's plausible, I suppose. And the other narrative, though, is that this is all just tactical. He's making noises about being accommodating to the Druze and the Alawites and the Christians because he knows in the short term he needs stability. And saying those words might help him get the stability he needs to build the state he wants. And that state may well be it might be a failed project, in which case we have Afghanistan. Well, two versions of Afghanistan, one of which was the failed state under the United States, and the other one is the successful state, in a sense, of the Taliban-dominated state today. And we might see, might hear an echo of that in Syria.
Exactly.
It remains to be seen. I'm pessimistic, to be honest.
I'll tell you what, Professor Andrew, there's a saying in India, there's a saying in Hindi, which says that an elephant has two sets of teeth. One is the expensive ivory ones, which he shows to the world, and the ones with which he actually eats. And that's exactly what it could be here in the case of Abu al-Julani as well. That
exactly.
There is a
and
facade for the world.
While we're talking about elephants, there's an old African proverb: when elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And so
indeed, yeah, there is another proverb there. Absolutely, yes. So, Dr. Awwad, then let me ask you about the refugees as well as the fact that there could be another possible migrant crisis that the world may have to brace itself for, simply because the uncertainty in Syria could make way for an Islamist extremist regime that may not be a better or a superior option than the Assad regime. Or will it be a better option? Okay, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
I'm sorry. I think every wise man in Syria and a reasonable educated person is thinking of leaving Syria because they know that these forces, 70% of them, they are not Syrian, by the way. They're all Uzbek, Tajik, Kurd, they are Turk, they are from the northern Marrakesh, they're all Al-Qaeda. And HTS stands for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which was Al-Qaeda, which is affiliated to ISIS. And we all know that Julani was promoted in Iraq to Amir, to a prince, because he killed enough Iraqis that he got that rank of being an Amir. So therefore, to change the skin of the snake, we don't think that Syria is going to be a better place. And especially with these people who have thrown out their passport from Igor and all, sold it at the retail price in Idlib, are willing to go back. They came to make a Khalifa. Came to make an Imarat of Taliban, of Al-Qaeda, revival of Al-Qaeda. So I don't want to blame anybody but the Syrian people and even the Syrian government, who have given the opportunities to have a sleeping cell inside Syria, to have the people of Syria suffer and give that chance and advantage to the opposition and to vested interest nation to intervene in the Syrian affairs. And there were the mishap.
Dr. Anas, let me ask you this, that the role of global powers in the last 13, 14 years has pretty much been the core reason why Syria is where it is. Whether you take Russia, whether you take Iran, and now many are saying whether you take Turkey, because that is what is now going to shape the country. In your assessment, how do you see the Syrian crisis right now being used by Erdogan or by Turkey and those rebel forces that are being supported by Turkey? What, according to you, could be the top 2 or 3 outcomes from a Turkish point of view of how things are unfolding?
The topmost priority for 4 million Syrian refugees to safe places in safe cities. So to maintain stability and peace in Aleppo, in Hama, in Homs, in Damascus, in other major cities is and will be the top priority of Turkey, because they have huge economic pressure because of these 4 million refugees, and there's a lot of domestic political pressure on Erdogan. So I think that this is one of the most important things which Turkey is going to do. At the same time, what I follow from Turkish understanding right now is that Turkey is trying to engage almost all regional parties, especially Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and of course, Russia and Iran, so that a regional understanding can be developed, because an unstable Syria right now, without a strong state, without a strong military, will be no less dangerous than Afghanistan. So to maintain peace and stability, especially stability in Syria, should be a shared concern of all countries in the region. And that is
So
why,
Asthana, okay. Yeah, the Asthana process failed. And now what you're saying is another such round of talks should happen. Essentially, Professor Andrew, foreign powers will continue to be relevant and drive Syria going forward, which has been one of its curses. Is probably another reason why they should stay right now and drive the future.
Yes, unfortunately for the Syrian people, Syria has become a playground or a battleground, as it were, for great powers vying for dominance in the region. And I would say that Turkey is the winner in that game. The losers are obviously Iran, the axis of resistance, the ring of fire, all of that. It's totally broken. And that might have consequences in terms of nuclear proliferation, but that's for a different show. Russia's clearly a loser. They're probably going to lose those two bases. And if they lose that air base, they lose a vital link to their African efforts, geopolitical efforts. So that's a problem as well.
They also get, the route to Black Sea may also get impacted because they need to have Turkey on their side to cross that Bosphorus Sea area. And secondly, in the Eastern Mediterranean region, Russia will actually have no presence when it comes to NATO.
They will not. And the other losers in all of this potentially are the Kurds. To the extent that Turkey's hand is strengthened in all of this, that works to the detriment of the Kurds in the northeast of the country. And the other big loser is the United States, especially if the Kurds are their American partners and the United States supports the Kurdish. If that goes pear-shaped, as it were, then the United States is going to lose this as well.
Right.
And the American presence in the region is very unpopular in the United States.
Yes.
The 900 or so American troops, nobody in this country knows why they're there or what
Yes.
they're doing. So when we look at winners and losers, Turkey's the big winner, Assad is the big loser, but
Yes.
Iran is a loser, Russia's a loser, and the Syrian people, unfortunately, as has been the case for a long time,
have been the biggest losers and biggest sufferers. And,
Yes.
and Dr. Awwad, let me then ask you this, that given the fact that there are different forces here in the region now, there are also different Islamic thought process that they follow. The rebels are Sunnis, but there are pockets which are Shia dominated. How does that now look in terms of going forward? Do you think they can all come together to form some semblance of a stable regime or a stable setup?
Well, let me just give a comment before I answer the question, because if the aspiration of the Syrian people left for the Syrian without a foreign intervention, that could be our dream. When the peaceful revolution took 2011, and we thought for 6 months that it is going to happen and political reform, but that's never happened. But believe me, Gaurie, the single beneficiary of all this is Israel. Now, currently, Israel have made 400 sorties on Syria, destroyed totally the infrastructure of Syrian military, air force, defense system, defense line. They have encroached 10 kilometers away from Damascus capital. They have violated the 1974 truce of the United Nations Security Council resolution of the demilitarization of the power between the two countries. Now they are, I can tell you, just listen to my point, which I have mentioned in my article, that the American company in 2015 discovered oil in the Golan. And this oil tributary is 60 kilometers deep inside Syria. Now they are encroaching into those territories without any single resistance from anywhere. So basically, Turkey gifted Syria to Israel.
Okay, we don't have a representation from Israel to really counter some of those. And I've tried to be as fair as possible. And quick closing comment I want to give to Dr. Anas from Ankara. 30 seconds, I'm completely out of time. That one wish that you think will happen for Syria in foreseeable future. What do you think can possibly happen? 6 months, 1 year down the line.
A regional cooperation between Iran, Russia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia will be the best for Syrians. And I'm clearly that Turkey's ability should not be overstated or overestimated. Turkey does not have that much ability to deliver. So they need regional cooperation, especially with Iran and both Russia.
All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and speaking to me on India Global.